something that most people don't realize, that it's always easier for you and me to create wealth in the economic era that we live in than it was in the one that came before it. About it. Think about this. In the 1600 and 1700, you needed thousands of acres of land to be called wealthy. You needed a lot of cattle, a lot of land to be called wealthy. But coming to 2025 to 2026 and the years to come, all you need to be called wealthy is probably just a laptop, Wi-Fi, and the right skill set. And so let us break this one down. The wealth creation eras. This is just a deep dive on the wealth creation eras. In the 1700s, land and agricultural the land and agricultural era. So in this period, in this time, wealth was equal to land ownership. Farmers, landowners, and landlords controlled wealth. Actually, it's in this time that the word landlords came up, because these were the lords of the land. They were the people who owned land. So, and land ownership had barriers. Only the elite, people who are the elite in the society, only the royals, or those who are born in the royal family, or those people who are born into land owning families could get rich. No any person, no peasant person could own land. And uh, people who didn't have land could actually farm for people who had land, for they either for either for them to be given accommodation or for them to be given food just to continue surviving. So as long as they kept tilling the land, as long as they kept farming, they could continue living because they were given food or they were given a place to live and a place to eat. So land ownership in the 1700s, land ownership equal to wealth. Now, let's go to the 1800s. In the 1800s, also known as the Industrial Revolution age or era, wealth in this era was equivalent to factories, was equivalent to machines, and equivalent to industries. Now, the rich people in this era were not just people who owned land, but they were people who owned industries. This is the era of the steel Carnegie, people owning steel industries, people owning the oil industry like the Rockefeller Foundation, people owning the railroads and the textiles. Now, the barrier in this era was that you needed a lot of capital, you needed a lot of workers and a lot of political influence for you to be able to own industries, for you to be able to own the machineries and the machines in this particular era. This shows that it was actually difficult or slightly difficult for you to own to be a rich person. Not slightly, because for you to own a steel industry or for you to own a company that produces steel, you needed a lot of finances and a lot of influence for you to be able to enter that particular bracket. Ordinary farmers could not easily transition to be factory owners. Ordinary farmers who were available, who own land in the 1700s, could not easily transition to be factory owners because of the type of economic prowess and power and influence that you needed for you to be an owner of an industry in this particular age. Now comes the distribution and the corporate era or age between the early to the mid 1900s. Now, in these times, in these eras, wealth was equivalent to people who are referred to be wealthy were people who could distribute the products worldwide. Remember the product that we have produced in the industrial age or industrial era before. Now, people who could be able to ship these products from one region to another, from one country to another, from one continent to another, and there are people who are now referred to be the wealthy. In this era, This is the time that we had rise of oil companies. This was the time that we had rise in the retail giants. Look at the kinds of Walmart. This is the time that shipping companies grew significantly, and manufacturing corporations also grew. And this also shows that there were barriers. And what were the barriers to being wealthy in this era? You needed a lot of infrastructure, and you needed a lot of networks for you to be part of this elite community. So you couldn't just start a global distribution chain only because you owned pieces of land. You needed a lot of influence. Similarly, just like the previous industrial age, you needed a lot of influence and political connections for you to be able to have wealth in this particular era. In the late 1900s, before we go to the late 1900s, so in the early and again mid 1900s, so wealth was concentrated in a few global corporations, because these were the people who were able to amass wealth and channel it into building distributions or corporations that were able to distribute these particular goods. Now, in the 1900s, this is the finance and the partnerships era. This is the era of economic era of money. And in this era, wealth was equivalent to capital. Wealth was equivalent to how many investments do you have. Look at the likes of Wall Street. Look at the likes of just generally partnerships. Now, in this era, investment bankers, hedge funds, and multinational partnerships created billionaires. People who had people who were able to leverage partnerships, people who had access, people who were able to leverage finance, were able to grow and access a lot of funding and funds, and so they became wealthy. And still, there were barriers in this era. And what were the barriers? Because you needed a lot of money and you needed a lot of network and partnerships. The barriers were you needed access to networks, you needed access to education, and you needed access to financial systems. That is why very few people could become wealthy. Very few people could become multimillionaires and billionaires. So ordinary people in this category were merely spectators. There's nothing that they could do but spectate and still work on the farm or work in the industries and just become laborers to the companies and to the corporations and to the billionaires that had a lot of money. Come in the 2000, the era of technological era. In this era, wealth was equal to technology at scale. The good examples that we have are people like Bill Gates, people like Steve Jobs, Larry Page, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and whoever was able to leverage technology created wealth in this particular era. Mark Zuckerberg became the youngest billionaire because of Facebook. Jeff Bezos became a millionaire. Steve Jobs became a millionaire. Bill Gates was not just millionaire but billionaires. And this shows that again there were barriers. And what were the barriers? For you to become wealthy, in this particular era, you needed coding skills or ability to hire people who knew coding. You needed capital. You needed a global vision. Compared to owning land and factories and just having machines, it was much easier for you to become wealthy in this particular time when you have the required necessary skills like the coding skills and the capital and just having a global vision. And just a few college students with a very good idea could change the world. And that's why people who had knowledge in coding, if you look at the emergence of Facebook. Just needed someone with skills and knowledge to bring together people on a networking platforms, people to create friendships, people to create memories, and they were able to create billionaires from just this mindset. Come to the 2020s, the current economic era, the artificial intelligence and digital skills era. In this era, you only need two things. You need the ability to have skills, you need a skill set, and then you need to leverage AI. And therefore, today, in the current times, the current era, you don't need billions in capital. You don't need hundreds of acres of land. You don't need industries. You don't need factories for you to be able to create wealth. You need a laptop, you need internet, you need the right skill set, and you can build multiple streams of income. Mark Zuckerberg, again, he signed someone from Scale AI, I think he's called Mr. Wang, and he bought him on board to help his Meta team develop artificial intelligence systems into Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. So he bought him for a lot of billions of money just by the virtue that this person had the right skills and at the right time in the current economic times. So in the current economic times, you need the right skills and you need the skill set and the ability to use artificial intelligence for you to be regarded wealthy. Skills like sales, skills like negotiation, critical thinking, problem solving, technology, and just understanding, having a full grasp of artificial intelligence will give you a lot of leverage. Now, if you compare the barriers in the current economic era, the barriers are almost none as compared to the past. Right now, anyone can learn a skill. Right now, anyone can take a course. Right now, anyone can access internet. Often, many a times, these things are available and they're accessible for free or at a very small at a very small fee as compared to you having wealthy in the previous economic eras. I want you to make some observations that one economic era has always been leading to the other one. The agricultural and land era ushered in the industrial era. The industrial era ushered in the distribution and corporation era, which ushered in the finance era, which ushered in the technology era, which has currently ushered in the AI and the digital era. Now, the key takeaways as we are going through this are this. Notice the trend that every era lowered the barrier to wealth creation. What you needed to be wealthy in the first economic era is not the same as what you need to be wealthy in the current era. In the 1700s, you required millions or thousands of acres of land. Or in the 1800s, you required factories. In the 1900s, you required corporations and finances. In the 2000s, you just require the skills. And in the current generation, the current economic era, you just require the willingness and the ability to learn the skills and leverage them for you to create wealth. So it's always easier, like currently, where the current economic times era, it's always easier for you to create wealth in the current economic era or times that you live in as compared to the previous economic eras. You won't get hundreds of millions of money to purchase millions of acres of land for you to be wealthy because that era is far gone. Similarly, you won't build a lot of industries or factories for you to be wealthy. That era is gone. You only need a good laptop and the skill set, and you can create a lot of wealth in the current economic time. So, what should you do? So stop pushing that you lived in a different economic era because even in that time it will be hard because you need a lot of finances to grow and become wealthy. Instead, maximize the opportunities that you have in the current era right now. Learn the skills that matter, leverage artificial intelligence, and position yourself towards growth. Now, these are some of the high value skills that you can learn in the current era: sales, negotiation, technology and AI, critical thinking, problem solving, project management, and content creation. So, as we finalize this short video and as understand the truth, and this is the truth: wealth is never about timing. It's about adapting to the current economic times that you are in. People who mastered land in the 1700s got rich. People who mastered factories in the 1800s got very rich. And people who mastered technology and AI and distributions in the 1900s and in the 2000s got very rich. The likes of Walmart, the likes of Jeff Bezos, they got very rich. And people who master AI, people who master problem solving today will be the millionaires of tomorrow. So the question is this: are you adapting to your era? That is it for today. Thanks for watching. Stick around.